Welcome to the Scientist with Heart podcast, my open diary of academic life. This is a space where I share my personal thoughts and reflections on research, teaching, and university life. These are my own opinions, and the aim is to spark discussion, exchange perspectives, and gather insights from others navigating the academic roller coaster at the bench and in the lecture hall. Last episode, I talked about lab protocols, how to approach new lab protocols. And a hallmark of protocols is that they consist of buffer recipes, and you have to prepare solutions, buffers, salt solutions, deal with enzyme stocks, and so on and so forth. So this time I want to talk quickly about how to make buffers and solutions, and I want to explain why, for me, preparation is everything. When I go to the lab in the morning and I have my task list, my to-do list, I'm not going to an empty bench. I have prepared the day before what I need. The tubes are prepared and labeled for my samples. The buffers and solution I'm going to use are prepared, unless they are required to be prepared freshly. Everything is at the appropriate temperature, and I am simply prepared. Every one of you who did a buffer or a solution once is probably aware that this takes time, right? In our lab, we do work a lot with stock solutions. So they are 5x concentrated, 5 times concentrated, or 10 times concentrated versions of the buffers and solution. So you just have to dilute down. Still, taking out the cylinder from the cabinet, taking an empty clean bottle, diluting your concentrate with water. Also, this takes time and can be prepared in advance. Worse, if you have to prepare buffer and solutions that consist of several stock solutions and you have to mix a buffer together. Basically, if you want to mix sodium chloride and magnesium chloride and then a tris HCl buffer, a little bit of maybe SDS or Triton for solubilization, and all of this then has to be filled up with water. If you start calculating how much you need the day of the experiment and picking out your buffer bottles, stock solutions from the cabinet, putting it on the bench and starting to make your buffer and solution before you start the experiment on the very same day, I can assure you, you will lose an hour, sometimes 2. When you know what you are going to do and you have a protocol, always make sure that at the end of the protocol there are all the buffers and solutions listed, and listed in a way that it's not only concentrations for your thesis or lab report, but that it's basically a recipe where you know exactly what to mix with each other. And then make those buffers and solutions and prepare them in advance. So we have cabinets, we have the cold room, we have our fridges. Everything that we can is prepared. That facilitates the workflow extremely. And it is also something I teach to my students. Why is it important to be prepared? When you prepared the buffers and solution in advance, it means you are prepared for the steps that you have to execute because you know the protocol for your experiment, and it's part of good laboratory practice. Everything around working efficiently and disciplined in the lab will already be visible in your first ever results, and that's how I went through very complex lab experiments, and also that's how I could at times execute 3 protocols, very different ones, at the same time using the incubation phases, because I knew I now have everything at hand that I need and I will not run into trouble. I knew exactly how long everything took and I know exactly where my buffers and solutions are. So it is about productivity and efficiency. So prepare buffers in advance. It's absolutely everything for a smooth lab workflow. Let me know how you deal with this. Share your stories when you maybe have seen yourself at the bench and realized, oh, I need to adjust the pH, so it will take half an hour until I have this solution, but I need this solution in 5 minutes, so it's not going to work. Shit. We've all been there. Nobody is perfect.